If you have ever seen a game show, you know how important it is to walk through the right door. Why? Because if you pick the wrong door, you're eating sardines. I don't know what to tell you, bro. Did you watch any of this? Did you watch any of this? You see, walking through the right door is very important to get to the place where you want to go. Maybe you've been at your friend's house. Maybe you spent the night at a new friend's house. I know some of you guys are 6th graders. You went to a new school. Or maybe you just had to switch schools. Maybe you're in 8th grade. You switched schools. You got new friends. You're spending the night at your friend's house. You don't know where anything is. And I want to pitch this to you. It's the middle of the sleepover. Suddenly, you've got to pee real bad. And you're like, bro, I need to find this bathroom immediately. So you go to your friend and you're like, okay, tell me where the bathroom is here. I need to know. I don't know where any of this place is. And they're like, oh, bro, so easy. It's just down the hall on the left. You walk over to the hall. You look down the hallway. And it's all left doors, and there's 5 of them, right? And you're like, I don't know. I need to use the restroom. Which door am I going to pick? There's 5 of them. You're like, walk in, and you're like, all right, I'll pick door number 2. Boom, you open the door, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a sister's room. She's like about to kill you. You like have to flee for your life, and you're like, I can never come back here ever again. You were just trying to pee. You were just trying to find the bathroom. Picking the right door is so important for getting where you want to go. See, doors only work if you use the right one. You can't walk into a bedroom and expect it to turn into a bathroom. You can't walk into a Walmart and expect it when you walk through the door to just suddenly turn into a Smith's. I don't know. You need to pick the right door if you're going to go to the place that you're trying to go. I think if I took a poll in this room, or if we even just took a poll in the world, everyone would say that they are trying to live a good life. I want to live the good life. You've heard the term, man, I'm just trying to live my life. You know what I mean? People are saying, I want to live the best life possible. And I think if you ask somebody, I don't think anyone would say that they're trying to live a bad life. No one's in here saying, you know what? I just want a bunch of terrible things to happen to me. And I just want to be sad all the time. And I want nothing to go my way. Everyone's trying to live the best life that they possibly can. And as you're growing up, maybe it's been pretty easy for you to live a good life. Maybe you've had a lot of things handed to you. Maybe you've had a lot, you hear me talking about a bad life and you're like, bro, I don't know what that is. I have everything that I could ever want. I have a great life. But maybe as you're starting to get into middle school a bit more, maybe you're even getting older, maybe you're in 8th grade. Hey, if you're in 8th grade in here, man, I appreciate you guys so much. 8th grade is a hard grade to be in. You're like kind of in this weird phase where you're like kind of too mature for like middle school, but you're like not really yet in high school. And it's this really weird place where you start to go through things. You start to have questions that you've never had before. You start to have feelings that you've never had before. You start to have questions, who the heck am I? What do I like to do? Where do I want to fit in? And 8th grade can be a tough time where you're kind of just like, I don't know what's going on in my life. Something changed this year. And I don't feel like anyone's here for me. 8th grade can be tough. If you're in 8th grade, I'm so glad that you keep coming here. And my heart is actually for you. See why middle school needs the 8th graders. Why? Because you're kind of the upperclassmen. You're the upperclassmen. You're the upperclassmen. You've walked through more things than the 6th and the 7th graders have walked through. They might not know what it's like to have things fall apart yet, but maybe you're experiencing that. And when you show up to learn about Jesus, and you continue to live a life for Jesus, I hope you know that people are actually watching. The sixth graders are learning how to be a middle schooler because they watch you. The seventh graders are just like looking for someone to hear them out, because seventh grade is also like a weird time. You're like, I don't know, I'm like in the middle. This is so strange. I'm the middle child of middle school. Eighth graders, you guys are so important. And the reason I have a heart for you is because I think eighth grade is when I really started to go through things. It's when I really started to look at my life and maybe things weren't going in a good direction. Maybe I couldn't say that I was living a good life anymore. Maybe things started to happen and I didn't know what to do about it. And I had a lot of questions about who Jesus was and how I can actually live a good life. See, people are looking for a good life where they're not having to worry, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about what people are thinking about me. I don't want to be trapped by that anymore. I don't want to be trapped by feeling like I'm always disliked. I don't want to be trapped by being stressed out all the time of getting good grades and making my parents happy and maybe I'm just anxious. I don't want to have a bad life. I don't want to have to worry about the anxiety anymore. People are looking for a good life. And if you are looking for a good life in here, I've got really great news for you. The news is found in John 10. We're going to read that tonight. It's actually what we're going to be learning. So it's going to be up on the screens, but if you would read with me, starting in verse 7. It's Jesus talking. He explained a story to them. He said, I tell you the truth, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me were thieves and robbers, but the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate. Other translations say he is the door. Those who come in through me will be saved. They will come and go freely and will find good pastures. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and a satisfying life. Another translation says, I came to give them life to the full. See, when we have these things, we're constantly worried about what people are thinking about us. We're constantly seeking for satisfaction in things we weren't made to find satisfaction in. It feels like life can be half full. Maybe you woke up today and you kind of feel like your life is like a glass half full. You don't feel like you're living it fully. Maybe something happened. Maybe something happened in your family recently. And you're like, because this thing happened to me, I don't feel like I have a full life. I feel like I have a half life. The good news for you is that what Jesus came to do is he came to give you a full life. He came to give you that life that you feel is not complete, and he came to completely spin it around for you. You see, what do we get when we follow Jesus? We get a life that's worth living. We get the life that everyone is looking for, whether they're a celebrity looking for it through fame, whether they're your friends looking for it by being a football star or a basketball star. Maybe it's your parents. They're looking for a full life, just the things they're doing, their career, success. When we live life with Jesus, what he promises us is this rich and satisfying life. Maybe you're not experiencing a half life right now, but your friends might be. You go to school and your friends are going through something, or maybe someone in your family is. This is such good news to hear, because if they're looking for that and they're wondering, which door do I walk through? Jesus tells us right here, he says, I am the door that you open in order to find a rich and a satisfying life. You see, earlier Ezra kind of had to guess which door the gift card was in. But Jesus, the man who rose from the dead, the man who defeated death, the man who performed miracles and claimed to be the God that created this whole place, he tells us which door to walk through. So as we're going through this series, it's called Jesus Is. The whole idea is, man, who did Jesus say that he was? People say he's a lot of things, but who did he say that he was? What does he say this week? This week, he says that he is the door. And if you open that door, if you come to him, he will give you a rich and a satisfying life. He'll give you the life that everybody is looking for. See, I think some of you have heard this before. Maybe I've even said it. I'm like, hey, following Jesus is the best way to live your life. And maybe the past couple weeks you've been like, yes, I'm going to do it. Maybe you even raised your hand. You wanted to start living for him. And then maybe immediately afterwards, you're like, hey, this is awesome. I've been doing this Jesus thing. Why doesn't it feel like I'm living a full life right now? Or maybe your friends at school, maybe they're wondering, why doesn't it feel like I'm living a full life right now? As we talk about Jesus and how he is the door to this life, I want to just talk about 3 reasons why people don't have life to the full. So 3 reasons why maybe you aren't feeling like you have life to the full. 3 reasons why your parents maybe don't feel like they have life to the full. 3 reasons why your teacher maybe doesn't feel like they have life to the full. So even if it's not speaking to you directly right now, you feel like you have a pretty good life, I want you to take notes. I want you to remember this, because God might be telling you this so that way you can help somebody else. The first reason why people don't have life to the full is they just don't know what it is. They don't know what it is. You can't find something if you don't know what you're looking for. I think one of the most fun things to do is like a midnight snack run. I don't know why I've been on all these food analogies. Maybe I'm just really hungry when I'm writing my sermons. But have you ever opened the fridge or gone to the cabinet and you don't really know what you're looking for? You just want food. You guys know what I'm talking about? How hard is it to find something? It's like impossible, bro. Even sometimes your favorite snack, you're like, nah, potato chips are too salty. Or maybe you do have some Nerds clusters in your cabinet and you're like, yeah, but that has red dye 40 in it. I can't have red dye 40. Shouts out, red dye 40 crew. All right. As soon as you stop and say, you know what I'm looking for? I don't want anything sweet. I don't want anything salty. I kind of want something in between. As soon as you figure out what you're looking for, how easy is it for you to find your snack? So easy, dude. So easy. Or maybe you thrift in here. I don't know. Does anybody thrift? I thrift a lot. Some people are really good at thrifting. If you're like me, I'm really bad at thrifting. I never know what I'm looking for when I show up. But some people are so good at thrifting, and do you know why I think they're good at it? Because they know what they're looking for when they go to the thrift store. They're like, dude, I'm looking for some Jordans, some Jordan 1s, and I'm going to resell those things. They show up to the store. If they're not there, they just leave and go somewhere else. If you know what you're looking for, it's really easy to find it. But if you don't know what you're looking for, if you're just meandering and picking at random, it's really hard to figure it out. And I'll say this. Some people, when they think about a life to the full, when they think about a good life, they're not thinking about the right thing. When I was in middle school, I remember, what did I think a good life would be? I thought a good life would be that every single craving that I had, like if I just wanted to do something, if I was hungry, like any passion that I had inside, if I just fulfilled that, then I would have a good life. If I just got everything that I wanted, then I'd have a good life. That's what I thought having a good life was in middle school. If all my circumstances were right, then maybe I would have it. You see, the people that Jesus was talking to here, they thought it was the wrong thing. He's talking to the Pharisees, if you didn't know. What the Pharisees thought a good life was a life that was, if they were just perfect, man, if everyone liked them, if everyone thought they were super religious, if they were just really, really good, then they'd get into heaven. And Jesus is telling them the reason that they cannot have a good life is because they're looking for the wrong thing. What does Jesus say that life to the full is? We look for the answer, we find it in verse 1. He starts off with this kind of random analogy. He says, I tell you the truth, anyone who sneaks over the wall of a sheepfold rather than going through the gate must surely be a thief and a robber. But the one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep recognize his voice and come to him. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. After he has gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them, and they follow him because they know his voice. This doesn't really make much sense to us today, but all the people he was talking to, sheep farming was like the thing. Sheep farming was like having a job at McDonald's. Maybe some of your older siblings are getting a job. Maybe they're going to work at Chipotle. Maybe they're working at Starbucks. This is like that. Everyone did it. So it would make sense to them. Jesus talks about something called a sheepfold. What is it? It's just a little area where the sheep would stay safe at night. So it's 4 walls, and it had one door to get in and out. And it only had one door to get in and out because if there was only one door, it'd be really easy to keep them safe, right? So Jesus talking about life to the full, later on in verse 9, he says, it's like being brought into the sheepfold. It's like being brought into God's family. It's finding safety. It's being saved. It's having eternal life. That's one thing that life to the full is. Another part that Jesus talks about in verse 9, he also says, but then you go in and out and you can find pasture. I feel like I'm missing you guys really quickly. I want everyone to lock in really quick. And I'll keep it short. Some of you have been Christians for a while. Maybe you grew up in the church. And you are hearing that Jesus gives you life to the full. And you don't really know how that's possible. Because right now, the way everything looks for you does not look like it's life to the full. It actually looks like your worst nightmares are happening. You're like, why did Jesus let me down if he's supposed to give me life to the full? Why did this thing happen to me? And the reason is, I'm not going to get into all of this, but Jesus does not promise us a good life, but what he does promise us is eternal life. And he promises that he will give us what we need. You see, Jesus never promised you that new Xbox. Jesus never promised you that boyfriend. Jesus never promised you all of those friends at school. But what he does promise you is that you will be satisfied on the inside no matter what happens to you. You see, a life to the full is not about the circumstances that you have or the things that you're going to get. And some of you are chasing after things rather than just being a satisfied person. You see, the problem is that there is only one door to a satisfying life. And all of those things are lying to you right now. And they will not take you to the place that you are wanting to go. But because you're not wanting to go through the door, you're not wanting to go through God's plan, you're not wanting to do what he's asked you to do, you're not wanting to follow his commandments, all of the things that you're letting into your life are the reason that you're depressed and anxious right now. God did not let you down. God did not leave you. He did not forsake you. But his plan for your life is that you would go through him. You see, this thing can happen when we're Christians, where we think that if I just go through the gate one time, I raised my hand. I went up for the altar call. I'm a Christian. I entered the sheepfold like Jesus is talking here. Think of the sheepfold like God's house. Think a king's castle. I walked across the moat. I went through the big entrance gate, and I finally got into the king's house where there's food. There's everything I need there. There's everything I could want there. I'm satisfied there. I'm safe there. I walked in, and now I have everything. So I'm good to go. I don't need to walk through this gate anymore. I don't need to use the door anymore. You know what? I said yes to Jesus once. That's enough for me. The reality of what Jesus is talking about here, saying he is the door, is Jesus is someone that you need to go to over and over and over again. You do not graduate past needing Jesus. Jesus is not something that you outgrow and now you're so, like this perfect person and your life is perfect. You will always need him. So maybe you found yourself inside the walls of the church. I'm a believer. I'm a Christian. Why aren't things working for me? Maybe the reason that it's not working for you is because you keep forgetting to go to the door that Jesus said you need to walk through. You see, when you're in this pasture, right, you're in the sheepfold, you're like, imagine it's like your room. I know sometimes I would just feel safe in my room. Like maybe I got scared of something in the night. You like run to your room, you close the door, and you're safe. You're good there. You still need to go to the kitchen to get food. You'll still need to get up to get water. You'll still need to go out of the house to get resources, right? You're just sitting in this sheepfold, and when you have a desire, you have something that you need, you start to just try and go a different way. You're like, I'm not going to go to Jesus anymore. I already did what he asked me to do. So you start looking for other ways to get it. It just doesn't work because Jesus wants you to walk through his door. Life as a Christian is learning how to go to Jesus over and over and over again. Let me tell you how to do that. When you need something, when you want something, what is the first thing you think about? Do you even think about God? Do you even think about what he wants for your life? Or do you just start trying to figure out how to get it yourself? When you're hurting, is the first place you go to Jesus? Do you pray and just say, hey, Jesus, I need you? Or do you start going somewhere else? I can tell you this, you can only stop going to Jesus for so long before it starts not working out for you. If you need something, walk to the door. Walk to Jesus. Do what he has asked you to do. Because the thing he's asked you to do is probably the thing standing in the way, and it's probably the thing causing you issues. So no, we've been talking about it a couple weeks in a row. We talked the other week about how he's the light, and how maybe he's bringing to light something that you were supposed to do, and maybe it's 2 weeks later, and you still haven't done that thing. Go to Jesus. Do what he's asked you to do. Not because he's mean, but because he likes you a lot. And he loves you a lot. And the reason he asked you to do that thing is because it's the very thing standing between you and the life to the full that he's promised you. There's 4 things that I want you to remember. God's way, all the way, right away, every day. If you want to live a life to the full, if you want to live the life that Jesus has promised you, you need to know that he doesn't want you to come to him because he's like being kind of weird about it and needs you to do certain things. No, it's because he just sees things the way that they really are, and he knows exactly what you need to do. And maybe the reason you've been avoiding the door, the reason you have been avoiding going to him, is because you know that he asked you to do something that you don't really want to do, so you start trying to find another way. Maybe you've let your mess get in the way of a door. So just full honesty, when I was younger, my room was just an absolute mess, like all the time. Like stuff on the floor. Sometimes I'd have so much laundry in front of my closet that I couldn't even open it. If I wanted to get to my closet, I couldn't find another way to get into it. Yes, there was the clothes that were covering the door, but that was still the only way to get there. And I'll tell you this, Jesus is not putting obstacles between you and him. In fact, Jesus only took down obstacles. I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, before Jesus came, if they were coming to church, they would show up to this temple. And the presence of God would literally be inside of it. It's kind of hard for us to think about. But the Spirit of God would be in this room in the back, and there was this heavy curtain that separated people from the presence of God. It says that when Jesus died on the cross, it says that miraculously, that veil was literally torn into. So the doorway that kept us from the Lord, our sin, it was taken care of, and Jesus opened up a path for us to go to him. The laundry that you have placed in the floor, the obstacles that you have in the floor, your sin, your mess, the things that you're scared of, they are not standing between you and Jesus. Jesus did not put those there. In fact, he tore those things so that way you could come to him. So sometimes we look at these things in our life, we look at these obstacles. I don't want to be obedient. I have this sin. Jesus doesn't want me. No, I did this thing, so why would he want me to come to church? Why would he want to pour out a blessing on me? And he's looking at us and he's saying, I already took care of that on the cross. I want you to just come anyway. Get rid of the obstacles. Just move them to the side. Just come to me. Walk over the clothes. Just kick them to the side. And just ask me anyway. You see, when you let those obstacles get in front of you, you start to look for a way that's not God's way. And when you do, you don't end up in the place that you wanted to. So you need to choose God's way. And you need to choose it all the way. Sometimes we're like, okay, Jesus, I'll do half of what you said, but I'm going to keep this one thing over here for me, all right? That is still not going through the door. That is still not going through the pathway to Jesus. It's like showing up to the outside of the little sheepfold and looking over. And all you get to see is this life that Jesus had for you. The peace that you've been looking for, you just look at it a little bit. What Jesus wants you to do is all the way do what he's asked you to do and walk through the gate, through obedience, doing what he's asked you for. The next thing is right away. Anytime that I know God has asked me to do something and I hold off on it, I just end up for the 2 weeks that I'm waiting to do it, just being kind of anxious and stressed out. And I'm like, why has God forgotten about me? Why is life looking this way? Why am I going through this? And he's like, because you waited to do the thing I asked you to do. I just wanted to take care of you. I just wanted to help you, but you waited. You see, when we have quick feet to right away go to the door, all of that time, all of those 2 weeks, 3 weeks that we were waiting around just miserable, we could have gotten over it immediately. And why am I saying this to you right now? Because maybe I've experienced this very recently. And maybe within the past couple weeks, I was like, man, kind of holding off, God. I'm still asking you about that. As soon as I did the thing that he asked me to do, what I was experiencing, the not having the life to the full that I was experiencing, it went away. Why? Because I walked through the gate. And I did what the Lord asked me to do, and it took care of the problem that I was experiencing. The last thing is every day. You might have heard this phrase. Do I have to brush all of my teeth? Only the ones you want to keep, right? Do I have to talk to God every day? Do I have to go to Jesus every day? Man, only the days that you want his presence, only the days that you want life to the full. Listen, if you don't go to Jesus, I'm not saying that you won't be saved. I think this. I think that some Christians will raise their hand at an altar call. They will genuinely believe they are going to heaven, they are saved. But then they will continue for the rest of their lives to never live the actual life to the full that God has promised them until they get to heaven. Why? Because they don't every day want to live the way that Jesus has asked them to. And the reality is this. Sin is us living our way instead of God's way. Our way does not work the way that God's way works. So you can be a Christian and not be experiencing the life that God has promised for you. Why? Because we're not doing what he's asked us to do. So some helpful tips, those 4 things. You can even just remember that sentence. God's way. All the way. Right away. Every day. If we live that way, it works. And let me tell you how simple all of this is. And it's a change that I have just made in my mind. And it's when I want to do something, I literally just ask God about it first. Instead of going, okay, well, I'm trying to think about when I was in middle school. Okay, well, I need to ask my parents if I can do this thing. The first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to stop in my head really quickly and I'm going to say, hey, Jesus, do you actually want me to go to that party? Hey, Jesus, do you actually want me to join this team? And it starts like making Jesus the pathway that you make all of your decisions with before anything else. So one thing you can start doing right now is talking to God way more. He wants to hear about everything. Did you know that God wants to hear about things that you just want to? So something that's funny is we like to hide the things that we want from God because like sometimes we think he doesn't know what we want. So when we want something that's like not good for us, like sin, when we have a desire internally, we like think that if we hide it from God that he just like doesn't know it's there. Did you know that it would be better for you to just talk to God about it? Hey, Jesus, I'm wanting this thing. Or another example, maybe it's not a sinful thing. Maybe it's just something that you do just desire. You don't need it. It's just a want. Did you know that you should talk to God about those things? Hey, Jesus, I really want to be on the football team, actually. Why? Because he knows that you want it anyway. And if you don't let him in on it, you're just going to try and get it yourself. And maybe God wants you on the football team. Maybe he wants you there. And if you were to just go to him, it'd be way easier for you to make it onto the team in general. Instead of trying to do all of this stuff and working connections and trying to be friends with everyone so that way you do get on the team. No. God's way is the easiest way. Why? Because you don't really have to make all of these decisions when you follow God's plan. How does it work? I'm in the sheepfold. I need something. I want something. I'm going to go talk to Jesus about it first. So maybe you just start writing down one thing that you're needing, one thing that you're wanting. Jesus, would you bring my family back together? Jesus, would you help me with my friends at school? Jesus, would you help me to want to read your word more? Jesus, would you help me get on the football team? I don't know why I keep saying football team. I feel like someone needs to hear this. Jesus, I want to be on the football team. Go to him with all of these things. And if he says no to it, there's probably a reason for it. I'm going to end with this. You are probably better at listening to God than you think you are. But you're also better at disobeying him than you're willing to admit to yourself. So sometimes we think God's not talking to us, but really, we know what he said. We're just saying we didn't hear him. Why? Because I just don't want to do it. So sometimes, the thing we didn't think we heard God on No, you definitely did hear him. Maybe check what it is. Is it just that I don't want to do it? You are better at hearing him than you think you are. And if you feel like he's telling you something and it lines up with his word, and you've been praying about it, you've been asking him for it every day, you should probably do that thing. Because he probably did tell you. He probably did mean it. And it's probably for a reason. So what is the point of tonight? What do I want you to walk away with? Is maybe you have not been going to the door. Maybe you have been intentionally not going to that place. I don't want to think about that, God, because I don't want your answer. You need to start genuinely asking him about it. You need to start going to him and seeing what his word says. You need to start praying about it and seeing what he has to say about it. And what do I think is going to happen? I think that when you start removing the obstacles that you have placed in your life to go and walk through the door, Jesus, I'm too tired. I don't want to get up enough to talk to you or pray to you. I'm too busy. I can't remember to pray to you. No, remove that. You can start remembering. When you start to remove those obstacles and move them out of the way, and you just walk to Jesus, what you're going to find is that the very reason he came is to give you the life that you've always wanted. The life you've always needed. Maybe it doesn't look exactly like what you're wanting, but it's what you need. So start removing those obstacles and just walk to him.